The billionaire collapsed the moment his eyes met the boy's face. Guests screamed, guards rushed forward, and the boy stood frozen because he had no idea that his face carried a secret, powerful enough to destroy a man who owned half the city. What Victor Halle saw in that orphan's eyes was something he had buried for 16 years. Daniel had never imagined a place like this. The mansion's iron gates towered. He adjusted the sleeves of his worn jacket, trying to look presentable, though he knew it was pointless. He was an orphan, no parents, no past. No one who ever came looking. The orphanage director had told him it was just a meeting. She didn't explain more than that, and her tight smile made his stomach twist. Important people didn't summon kids like Daniel for good reasons. Still, he had followed the instructions, climbed into the black car, and watched the city fade into something richer, quieter, and far more intimidating. When the car stopped, Daniel stared at the mansion in disbelief. It looked like something from a movie: perfect lawns, white stone walls, guards standing motionless like statues. For a moment, he wondered if this was some kind of test or a mistake that would be corrected as soon as someone noticed his shoes. Inside, everything echoed. Every step reminded him he didn't belong. He was led into a large sitting room and told to wait, alone, surrounded by luxury he had only seen on television. He sat stiffly, hands folded, heart racing. Then the door opened. Victor Halle entered the room with the confidence of a man used to control. Billionaire, industry leader. But the moment his eyes landed on Daniel, that control vanished. Victor stopped walking. His breath caught. His confident expression cracked, replaced by something raw and terrified. He stared as if he were looking at a ghost. Daniel felt his chest tighten under the weight of that stare. His hand gripped the back of a chair. His knees buckled. And before anyone could react, Victor Halle collapsed onto the marble floor. Shouts filled the room. Staff rushed in. Someone called for medical help. Daniel stood there, frozen, guilt and fear crashing into him at once. He hadn't said a word. He hadn't done anything. And yet somehow his presence alone had brought. As Victor was lifted onto a couch, his eyes fluttered open. The first thing he did was push away the hands trying to help him. "Where is the boy?" he demanded weakly. Everyone turned toward Daniel. Victor's eyes locked onto him again. This time they were filled with tears. "Don't let him leave," Victor said. "Please." The room slowly emptied until only the two of them remained. Daniel stood awkwardly. Victor asked, his voice trembling. "Daniel, sir, how old are you?" 16, Victor swallowed hard. "And where were you born?" "I don't know," Daniel replied. "Honestly, they said I was left at the orphanage as a baby." Victor leaned back, shaking. He stared at the ceiling like a man fighting memories he didn't want to remember. "Do you remember anything before the orphanage?" Victor asked quietly. Daniel hesitated. "It's just small things, a woman's voice. A song, I thought it was a dream." Victor closed his eyes. A tear slipped down his cheek. "What was the song about?" he asked. Daniel frowned, searching his memory. "The moon and the ocean and coming home." Victor broke. That song had been written by his wife, sung to their infant son every night before everything went wrong, before the accident, before the fire, before he was told the baby hadn't survived. Victor sat up suddenly, his eyes burning with a mix of pain and hope. "Do you have a scar?" he asked. "Above your right eyebrow?" Daniel lifted his hand instinctively. "Yes, I fell when I was little." Victor let out a broken laugh that turned into a sob. "I watched my son get that scar," he whispered. "The day he learned to walk." The words hung heavy in the air. Daniel's heart pounded. "Sir, what are you saying?" Victor stood on shaking legs and faced him fully. "I'm saying the boy I was told died is standing in front of me." Daniel's head spun. Now, a billionaire was telling him he had been loved so deeply that the loss had nearly destroyed a man. "But why would anyone lie?" Daniel asked softly. Victor's jaw tightened. "Because someone wanted my son gone." Silence fell between them. "There were people who benefited from my grief," Victor continued. "People who made sure I never searched. Daniel felt anger rise in his chest, anger for the years stolen from him, for the birthdays spent alone, for the nights wondering why no one ever came. Victor placed a hand over his heart. "I failed you," he said. "But I swear to you I will uncover the truth. Every lie. Every name." Daniel looked around the mansion again. It no longer felt intimidating. It felt unreal in a different way, like a life that should have been his from the beginning. But deep down, he knew this wasn't a happy ending yet. Because if someone had gone to such lengths to erase him once, they might not want the truth to come out now. And the moment Daniel stepped into that mansion, the past had woken up, and it was coming for all of them. Victor didn't sleep that night, neither did Daniel. The mansion that once felt cold and unfamiliar now felt heavy with questions that refused to rest. Daniel lay awake in a guest room larger than the entire dormitory he had grown up in, staring at the ceiling, replaying Victor's words again and again. "My son," the phrase echoed in his mind like something borrowed from another life. Across the hall, Victor sat alone in his study, surrounded by old photographs he hadn't touched in years. His hands trembled as he pulled out a small wooden box from a locked drawer. Inside were memories he had buried, hospital bracelets, a tiny blue sock, and a photo of a woman smiling softly while holding a newborn baby, his wife, Eleanor, and their son, Daniel. At dawn, Victor stood outside the guest room door, hesitating. For 16 years he had believed his child was dead. Now that the truth was standing on the other side of that door, fear crept in. What if Daniel hated him? What if the years apart had built a wall that money and apologies could never tear down? He knocked gently. Daniel opened the door almost immediately, as if he had been waiting. They stood there in silence for a long moment, studying each other. The resemblance was undeniable now, same eyes, same posture, even the same quiet way of holding tension in the shoulders. "Breakfast is ready," Victor said softly. "If you'd like." Daniel nodded. At the table, Victor tried to act normal, asking about school, hobbies, favorite foods. Daniel answered politely but cautiously. Trust didn't come easy when life had taught you people disappear without warning. Finally, Daniel spoke. "Why now?" Victor set his cup down slowly. "Because I never stopped grieving," he said. "But I stopped searching. I was told there was nothing left to find." "Who told you?" Daniel asked. Victor's expression hardened. "People I trusted." That same morning, Victor ordered a full investigation. Private investigators. DNA testing, financial audits, no expense spared. If someone had stolen 16 years from his life and from his son's, he would uncover every detail. The DNA results came back within days. A match, 100%. Victor wept openly when he saw the confirmation. This time there was no doubt, no hope mixed with fear, just truth. His emotions were tangled anger, relief, disbelief, and a strange sense of grief for the childhood he never had. Instead, he asked questions. Victor's face darkened at the last question. "My wife died the night of the fire," he said quietly. "Or at least, that's what I was told." Daniel froze. "What do you mean?" Victor leaned forward. "There was a fire in our vacation home. I was away on business. I was told Eleanor and the baby didn't make it. I never saw the bodies. I was in shock, drugged, surrounded by people, making decisions for me." Daniel felt his stomach drop. "So, my mother, I don't know," Victor admitted. "And that terrifies me." The investigation uncovered unsettling truths. The doctor who signed the death certificates had vanished years ago. The head of Victor's security at the time had suddenly retired overseas. Financial records showed large, unexplained transfers during the weeks following the fire. Someone had orchestrated everything. As the truth unraveled, so did Victor's carefully built empire. Board members grew nervous. Old allies became distant. Whispers spread that the billionaire was unstable, distracted, losing control. Daniel noticed the change. "You're risking everything for me," he said one evening. Steadily, "I lost everything once because I didn't fight. I won't make that mistake again." The danger was closer than either of them realized. One afternoon, as Daniel returned from school with a driver, A black SUV followed them. It stayed just far enough back to avoid attention, but close enough to be deliberate. That night, Victor's lead investigator arrived with urgency written all over his face. "They know the truth is coming out," he said, "and they're scared." "Who?" Victor asked. Victor closed his eyes. He corrected bitterly. "Or so I thought." His brother, Marcus Halle, had been struggling financially years ago. After the fire, Marcus had gained sudden control over several key assets while Victor was grieving. "He wanted my company," Victor said, "and my legacy. And you?" Daniel asked. That night, Daniel realized something frightening. He wasn't just a lost son. He was living proof of a crime. As guards doubled and security tightened, Daniel stood by the mansion window, watching the darkness outside. For the first time in his life, he had a family. And for the first time, that family was in danger. And the truth, when it finally came, out would destroy more than just lies. The storm broke faster than anyone expected. By the end of the week, the mansion felt less like a home and more like a fortress. Armed security patrolled the grounds day and night. Windows were reinforced, calls were screened. Every unfamiliar car was tracked. Victor refused to let Daniel out of his sight, not out of control but fear. Daniel noticed it in the way Victor flinched at sudden sounds, in how he checked exits before sitting down. This wasn't the confidence of a billionaire anymore. This was the instinct of a father who had almost lost his child twice. Marcus made his move on a quiet morning. Anonymous sources accused Victor Halle of mental instability, claiming he was being manipulated by a delusional orphan who believed himself to be Victor's son. Stock prices dipped within hours. The board demanded an emergency meeting. Daniel watched the broadcast in silence. "So that's his plan," he said quietly. Victor turned off the screen. "He's trying to make you disappear without touching." But he already tried once," Daniel replied. Victor's jaw tightened, and he failed. The emergency board meeting was scheduled for that evening. Marcus would be there, smiling, calm, pretending concern, waiting for Victor to collapse under pressure just as he had 16 years ago. This time, Victor was ready. Before leaving, Victor handed Daniel a slim folder. Inside were copies of DNA results, financial transfers, witness statements, and one final document that made his breath catch. A birth certificate, his birth certificate, with Victor Halle listed as father. "I won't let them erase you again," Victor said firmly. The meeting hall was packed. Board members, lawyers, media. Marcus sat near the front, composed, dressed in sympathy and confidence. When Victor entered, the room buzzed. Marcus stood. "Brother," he said smoothly, "we're worried about you." Victor didn't sit. "I'm not the one who should be worried," he replied. He turned to the room and spoke clearly, steadily, every word cutting through the tension. 16 years ago, my wife and child were reported dead in a fire. I was drugged, isolated, and lied to. Today I stand before you with proof that my son is alive and that the fire was used to cover a crime. Gasps rippled through the room. Marcus laughed lightly. "This is exactly what we feared," he said. Victor raised a hand. "DNA evidence, financial records, witness testimony, and a living son." Marcus's smile faltered for the first time. Security footage recently recovered from the night of the fire. The footage played. A man carrying a baby out of the burning house. Silence exploded into chaos. Victor stepped closer. "You paid people to make sure I never searched. You stole my child and threw him into a system where he could vanish. Police were already waiting." Victor watched him go, unmoving. Hours later, Daniel sat beside Victor in the mansion's quiet living room. The world outside was exploding with headlines, but inside, everything felt strangely calm. "You won?" Daniel said. Victor shook his head. "We survived." Daniel hesitated, then asked the question that had been haunting him. "What happens now?" Victor turned to him, eyes soft. Daniel thought of the orphanage, the nights alone. Victor's eyes filled again, but this time he smiled. Weeks later, Daniel stood at his mother's grave. Newly discovered? Truth finally restored? You didn't forget me, Daniel whispered to the stone. They just hid me. As they walked away together, the mansion gates opened wide. The boy who entered as an orphan left as an heir. Because some truths are buried deep, but they always find their way home.